Hi all, welcome to Tech-Acceptors. Today we are going to discuss about what is design patterns and what is singleton design pattern. How singleton design pattern is being used in industry and where we can use and when we can use singleton design pattern. So before going to learn about what is singleton design pattern, I am requesting you please subscribe our channel so you can get all new notifications. So first is learn about what is design pattern. So in our daily activities, in our programming, we may see lot of top problems which may have different solutions. But among these different solutions, there could be only one solution which is better. So for every repetitive problems, there could be one better solution which the gang of four people. The first gang of we will call it as gap. They introduced these design patterns and they have documented the repetitive problems and the solution for these problems. So gang of four people documented the repetitive problems and the gang of four people the repetitive documented the repetitive problems and better solution for this repetitive problems, right? So what is design pattern? Design patterns talks about the better solution for the repetitive problem. Yes. So design pattern talks about better solution for repetitive problem. So first, who introduced the design pattern? The gang of four people. Gang people introduced the design pattern, and they have documented these design patterns. In that gang of four design patterns, four design pattern. We can say it as co-design pattern, right? They have documented some design pattern. First one is single design singleton design pattern, factory design pattern like that. They have introduced a list of design patterns, and today we are going to discuss about what is singleton design pattern. Okay, let's try. Let's try to understand what is singleton design pattern. Okay, so in our application we may use first of all what is Java. Java is object oriented programming language. Means everything in Java will calculate. We will run the Java application on the basis of object. So first in Java, what we require first of all we need Java. In Java we need object. I have a class A and I want to perform some operations on class A. What we need? We need the object of class A is A is equal to new way. Okay. So any operation we need to perform, we want to perform in Java and class, we need object. But what will happen if we will create multiple object in Java? The memory problem will, the memory consumption will be more. The performance will decrease. That is why we there are some scenarios where we can create multiple objects, and there are some scenarios where we should not create multiple objects. Right? First, what is singleton pattern? Singleton design pattern talks about um, design pattern talks about within the within the class loader within the class loader hierarchy. If we have a, only one object for a class within the JVM hierarchy, you can say, or within the class loader hierarchy, if we have only one object for a class, okay, for a class, if we have only one object in the class loader hierarchy within the JVM, then that class is following, we can say that class is following singleton design pattern. Class, then we can say that class is following singleton design pattern. Okay, so what is singleton? Single, only one. In Java, what is only one? Only one is object. Singleton. If the class, okay, if the class contains only one object within the JVM memory, within the class loader hierarchy, then we can say that class is following singleton design pattern. But how we can make sure only one object within the JVM memory? We will talk about on this later. But every class can be a singleton. No, we cannot make sure we cannot make a single every class as singleton class. Okay. There are some scenarios where we can go for singleton. There are some scenarios where we should not make a class as singleton. Okay, if the class is if the class falls under some scenarios, let's say two, three scenarios are there. The class falls under these scenarios, then we can say we can make the class as singleton. If the class doesn't falls under these scenarios, we should not create class as singleton. Let's remember this point. In Java, every class we should not make singleton. There are some scenarios we can make class as singleton. Sorry. Let's say what are the scenarios? In which scenario we can go for singleton design pattern. Okay. So in in a class in Java, in a class, what carries the functionality? What in Java in a class, what carries the functionality? The answer is attributes, right? Attributes are the values which carries the functionality. So let's try. I want to add two numbers in class A. Class I have a class A. I want to add two numbers. First, what will int A will declare, int B will declare, in public int add method, int sum is equal to A plus B. We will add it. Yeah, what carries the functionality? Variables. These variables are attributes. We subtype into type, right? So every time these values are common, may not be. Right? They are may set as initialization via constructor. We may initialize these values like with the setters to constructor. That's a different story. So what we carries the functionality attributes right are variables. So if I have I want to add 10 term 20 where we can store in A 10 in B 20. I want to add 100 comma 200. What A in A we will store 100, in B we will store 200. So every time if we have a variables, every time the variables values are the attributes values may change, right? Are changing. If a class contains variables, the functionality will change. Whenever we want to change, whenever the values change. That is why if a class contains variables, if a class contains variable, listen properly. If a class contains variable, the object value will change. Every time the object value will change, right? That is where when we can go for singleton, if the object value doesn't change, right? The object value doesn't change. When the object value doesn't change, if the class contains attributes, is it same? No. The class contains attributes, the values will change. So when the values will change, the object will change. The object value will change, right? So the class doesn't contain any attributes. If the class doesn't contain any attributes, if the class doesn't contain any attributes or variables, the class doesn't contain any attributes or variables, then we can make that class as singleton. Let's try. What I have a class A. I have some methods. Creating object one time or 10 time. I have a class A. New way. What we will do here? We'll just call A dot some method M1 method. I have a class. I want to create one more A dot A1 dot M1. Is there any functionality changing? No. Functionality right remains same. But why you are creating two object? Which doesn't make sense, right? So if the class contains any attributes available, then we can make that class as singleton class. Because only the class contains only methods. To call the methods, only for calling the methods, we- creating multiple objects doesn't make sense, right? If we have values, we have some values, and for those values, we need to initialize. We have to initialize. Then for different values, we need different objects. Then that case, we can create multiple objects with multiple values. Okay, this is the first find. The class doesn't contain any attributes or variables. Then we can make that class as singleton. What is second find? Let's try with example. Let's class. I have a class A. I have a final in A is equal to 10. and I have a method public in square method. Yeah, sorry, int a return a into a. Okay, what is the value of a 10? We are changing? No, this is final. We cannot change. So value is constant. If we create a is equal to new a, and if we call a dot square method, if we create a1 is equal to new a a1 dot square method, what is output? Output will be constant same because the value is common. The value itself is final. The value is common, same. So the output will be same. So if the class contains variables and that variable is read-only variable, and we can share the value of variable across multiple objects. We can say so if the class contains variables and the variable is constant, and we can share across the object because if we share also the value of variable doesn't change, right? The value of variable is constant. Okay, what is second point? If the if a class contains variables and the variable is read only. If, if a class contains variables and the variable is read only, uh, can share across the object. If a class contains variables and the variable is read only, can share across the object, then we can make that class as singleton class, right? So in these two scenarios, we can make the class as singleton. Apart from these two scenarios, we should not make the class as singleton. So what is singleton design pattern? If within the JVM memory or within the class loader hierarchy, if a class contains only one object, if a class contains only one object within the JVM memory or within the class loader hierarchy, then that class is following singleton design pattern and that class is called singleton class. Why we need to make the class as singleton? Because if the if the functionality of the class doesn't change if we create multiple objects also. If the functionality of the class, if the container functionality of the class doesn't change, if we create multiple objects also, then creating multiple objects is waste. It will consume more memory consumption which will reduce the performance of the application. So to overcome this problem, we should not make every class we should not make multiple objects for every class. We should not make single object for every class. There are some scenarios where we can go for singleton, where we should not go for singleton. So if a class, what are these scenarios? So let's say if the class doesn't contain any attributes or variables, then we can make the class as singleton. If at all the class contains variables and the variable is read only, we can share the variable value across the object. Then we can make the class as singleton. Apart from these two scenarios, we cannot go for singleton. That if the variable contains variable, if the class contains variable that will change for object to object, then creating an object doesn't sen- doesn't sense, right? The class contains variable, okay? If the class contains variable that will vary from one object to object, that will change one object to one object, then we should not go for singleton. So, okay, um, how we can make how we can make a class as singleton class. Okay, I have a class. So singleton singleton talks about creating object. Okay, creating object. I have a class A. If I want to create object of A, how we will how A is equal to new A. Yeah, let's try. I have I have a class A. I want A is equal to new A. Yeah, what we are calling? What we are calling? This is called. This is public constructor, right? One is two. This is public constructor. So this is published constructor. So whenever we creating the object, we internally call public constructor for initializing the variables. So if what will happen? It is public constructor, right? What will happen if we make this as constructor private? This is public constructor. What will happen if we make this constructor as private? Let's try. I have a class say private constructor. Okay, private constructor, right? So if we have a class and we have a private method, a variable, what will happen? Who can access that private variables or private methods? Only within the same class can access. Outside of the class, can we access? No, we cannot access. We cannot access private variables, private methods, private constructor even. Even private constructor also we cannot access from outside of the class, right? So by declaring a class as private, what we are going to achieve here? By declaring a class as private, we are restricting outside of our classes. So by making private constructor, we are restricting other classes not to create the object of our class, right? So if we have a public constructor, then anyone can create object of our class. So to restrict And to not allowing other classes to create object of our class, we are making class constructor as private. So no one can create a class object apart from our, right? So, but what is singleton? Singleton means only one object. Then if we doesn't allow other classes to create singleton object, then we will create. That is the that is why we should create the object of this class, and we should store somewhere in our class in a way we can store normally in variables. So we should create the object of our class, and we should store in a variable in our class, and we should give our class object to s- other classes, right? We have created, we should store it. That is why we should store here one static variable, static, which is private static. The variable type is which type? The same class type, a instance. Okay, we can use ta- volatile also, private volatile also. Why? Volatile keyword ensures that in multi-threaded environment, okay, multiple thread offer the object variable correctly. Okay, this volatile variable ensures that multiple threads offer the object variable. This object variable correctly. If multiple threads are executing this class object, and to ensure the object variable to be same across multiple threads, which ensures that this volatile will ensures that multiple threads of the object variable should be correct, should be proper. Okay, that is why we should declare the variable as volatile. The first one is we are restricting other people now to create the object. We should create object, and we should store that for storing object we should create one variable, and for creating object of our class we should have one method, right? Public. So which I have a class A and I have a class B. Class B needs class A object, right? So I have object of class A. No, because private we have private constructor. So other people cannot call. If other people can call the method, what they need object. But they can create object? No, they cannot. How they can call class A? By class fs. So to call the method by class fn, the method should be static. That is why public static. What that method should return? Same class object, right? Class A get instance, right? Yeah, what we create instance is equal to new way, right? Then return instance. Okay, that makes sense. If I have a class B and I want need to call class A, what do I have a class B. What I will do? A is equal to A dot get instance. I will call get instance. Okay, because get instance is static method. We can call static methods with the class fns. Okay, that is why we make this class as static method. And one more point. Okay, what if we have? multiple threads are executing this method. Okay, I have a one thread executing this method and create it in a object and return a instance. Okay, one more thread is executing. Again, it will create instance the object. Then how many objects will be there? Multiple objects will be there in GVM, which doesn't make sense, right? So that is why first we need to check if instance is equal to sorry, if instance is equal to null. If instance is equal to null, then only we should create the object of we should create the object of class. Okay, if instance is equal to null, then only we should create the object. Otherwise, we should not, right? So, but yeah, also one problem is there. In multi-threading, one thread is executing this line. What will it will say? Instance is equal to null. Then what it will do? It will create the object. Okay, but before returning the object, if it returns object, it will store in instance, right? Before returning the object, it will the thread one terminates. Yeah, thread one terminates and thread two. Yeah, thread one created object and before storing and before returning the object, the thread one terminates. Then thread two got a chance to execute. What will happen? Whether instance is null or not null? Instance is null because thread one didn't return the object. Before returning itself, thread one terminates. Thread two got chance to execute. Instance is equal to null. Okay, the condition is true because thread one didn't return, store and didn't return. So instance is equal to null. It also will create the object. Okay, thread two also creates the object. Thread one also creates the object. Thread two also creates the object. Then thread two terminates. Then we will get the chance. Thread one gets a chance, and it will return the object and will store it in the instance. Then thread 2 got chance to execute the next lines. It also returns the object and stores in the instance. Then how many objects are there now? Two objects are because two different threads are executing this method and they created objects, different objects, right? That is where how we can restrict how we can restrict only one thread to execute the entire logic and what is the keyword we can use for now to executing multiple threads at a time. That is why synchronized keyword came into picture. Public static synchronized keyword came into picture. If we make a method as synchronized, only one thread can allow inside the method can execute the entire logic. If thread one came, it will be in waiting state. Okay, Let's see how the synchronous will solve our problem. If in multi-threaded, one thread came into picture, one thread came for execution, and if second thread came, it doesn't allow because it is synchronous. Only one thread can allow. It doesn't allow one get that one is executing. Instance is equal to null. It will create the object. It will store and it will return the object. Till then, what thread two is wait thread two. Thread two is in waiting state at this method itself. It is not entering into the method also. So thread 2 is there. If inside is equal to null, no. Because thread 1 already completed execution and stores in this variable. So it will not store the object, it will return the same object. Okay. Right? Yeah, like this also. Okay. If what if I have 100 methods? I have I have 100 lines of code. Okay. I have 100 methods to execute. What will happen? The time will be more because it is not allowing us to execute multiple threads at a time because synchronized keyword you restricting us to enter or execute only one thread at a time. Right? I have a 50 lines of code before create object and I after create object 50 lines of code. This 50 lines code can be executed by multiple threads at a time because there is no problem. This 50 lines of code also can be executed by multiple threads at a time. There is no conflict. But where we are getting conflict, only this piece of code. In this piece of code only we are getting okay, only this in this piece of code only we are getting conflict. Okay, if we have only a block of code which doesn't executed by multiple threads, then making entire method as synchronous is it sensible? Absolutely no. Okay, the above 50 lines of code can be executed by multiple threads and below 50 lines of code can be executed by multiple threads. But to restrict only 2 or 3 lines of code, not to execute multiple threads, making entire method synchronous doesn't make sense. That is why we have synchronized block, right? Synchronized of class level, a dot class. Now we can remove this synchronized keyword. So if we remove synchronized keyword, what will happen? Multiple threads can enter into the method. Multiple threads can execute the this 50 lines of code. And by seeing synchronized keyword here, only one thread can allow inside the method. It will create instance, it will store. Okay. And if second thread allows, it won't create again because it is already it is not null. So we can increase the performance of the application by running multiple threads, right? So oh, finally, what is singleton? When we can create singleton? How we can create singleton? So singleton means only one object within the class loader hierarchy within the JVM memory. There are some scenarios when we can go for singleton. The class doesn't contain any variables. We can make the class as singleton. The class contains variables and the variable is final. Uh, the access is only read only access. Then we can make the class as singleton. Then how we can make a class as singleton? First, other classes we should restrict other classes should not create the object of our class. That is where we should make the constructor X perfect, and to create the object of our class and to store we need one static volatile variable, and not in not to create multiple threads, not to create object by multiple threads, we should go for synchronized block in multi-threaded environment. So this is how we can make a class as singleton, and we can give this object to anyone. Thank for watching our video. Thank you guys. We'll meet in next session. Thank you.